So Josh Warrington defeats Lee Selby on a 12-round split decision to become the new IBF World Featherweight Champion. To my eyes, Josh Warrington beat the crap out of Lee Selby from the opening bell for the entirety of the fight. I gave Lee Selby 2 rounds in the whole fight. So I've got no idea how on earth the judges had it a split decision or how they had it so close. I thought Josh Warrington clearly won the fight. I'm not saying that Lee Selby wasn't in there and wasn't competitive in some rounds, he was, but Josh Warrington was landing by far the more clean, effective punches. And if it wasn't for the fact that Josh Warrington really can't punch, then Lee Selby would have been knocked out in this fight because he got hit with so many clean punches. It was incredible. Now, Josh Warrington is not a fighter who I've previously paid much attention to because I tend to be put off by fighters who can't really punch, particularly when they're fighting someone who also can't punch, because Selby is not a puncher either. But because of the fact that I've never really paid too much attention to Josh Warrington, I've clearly underestimated his boxing skills, because that's the thing that surprised me about this fight. Josh Warrington actually outboxed Lee Selby. I thought Warrington would just be marauding forward and there wouldn't be too much science behind what he was doing. But again, I clearly haven't been paying much attention to, I haven't been paying much attention to Josh Warrington over the years. So I've clearly missed the skill element to his game, and he is skilled. And he showed it here. Perhaps he boxed better in this fight than he normally does, or maybe he's shown glimpses of this kind of form in some of his previous fights. I don't know. I haven't seen many Warrington fights. But certainly in this fight here against Selby, he just outboxed Selby completely. He wasn't really pressure fighting that much. He was picking his spots. He was staying on the outside with a very tight guard, which Lee Selby could not penetrate. And he was waiting for moments to dive in with left hooks, with body shots. He was countering very well. When Selby would throw, Warrington was countering with fast combinations to head and body. Time and time and time again. Now, some people have said that Lee Selby was maybe a bit thrown off by the crowd, and I do think that there was an element of that to it. I think the crowd do play a big part in Josh Warrington fights because they can unsettle the opponent, and at the same time, Josh Warrington clearly draws energy from the crowd, and that energy fuels his performances. I've seen some people say that if Josh Warrington was to fight Carl Frampton at Windsor Park in Northern Ireland, that Warrington wouldn't be the same man because he doesn't have his fans with him. He'd be in hostile territory and he wouldn't have the fans energizing him. I guess we'll have to wait and find out if that is the case, because you can get into a situation where you rely on your hometown crowd too much, and when they're not behind you, you just don't have the same energy levels. So we'll see. But certainly in this fight, I do think there was an element of Warrington being energized by the crowd and Selby being a little unnerved by the crowd. The cuts definitely didn't help. He was cut on one eye from an accidental butt, a clash of heads. And then later on in the fight, he was cut again, which I think was from a punch. I might be wrong. The cuts certainly didn't help. It just weren't Lee Selby's night. Sometimes when a fight starts, you can tell that the energy is not right for one particular fighter. You can just tell that the vibes are not right for them. The vibes of the whole, the atmosphere of the event is just not right for that particular fighter. And that's how it felt for Lee Selby right from the opening bell, that the vibes just weren't right for him, you know. And I used to get the same feeling way back in the days when I used to watch football. And sometimes you can tell the team you're supporting from very early on in the game, it's just not going to be their night. The vibes are just not there. You know, passes are not being made properly, and you can just tell that it's not going to be your night and you're not going to win. And that's what it felt like for Selby in the first round. The vibe just wasn't there for him. And for me, he got battered the whole fight. I'm amazed it was as close as the judges had it. I had it very wide for Josh Warrington, you know. But let me know what you guys think. Did you have it as close as the judges did? Are some of you out there believing that Selby actually won the fight? To me, it's extraordinary that judges had Selby winning, or one of the judges had him winning. That's extraordinary to me. I thought Warrington won clearly, and Lee Selby really needs to go back to the drawing board. Selby, to his credit, showed toughness and tenacity, but this is a perfect example of when punching power is really a big deal in boxing. Because once Lee Selby fell very far behind on the cards, only punching power would have saved him. But the problem is, Lee Selby doesn't have punching power. Yeah, there are some people who act like punching power is irrelevant in boxing and it's really overrated. It's definitely not overrated in situations like this. This is when you can snatch victory from the jaws of defeat if you've got punching power. Yeah, but Lee Selby didn't have that, so he takes his L, the second L of his career. And he'll be disappointed and he'll be embarrassed because he went into the fight saying that he was going to outbox Warrington and it was going to be relatively easy, and he said he was going to stop Warrington. I thought that Lee Selby would win. I thought he'd probably win on points in a relatively dull affair. I knew that, well, I expected Josh Warrington to try and apply pressure, but I didn't realize he was as sophisticated as he was in his approach. I thought he was more crude than he actually is. But again, I've, not really been following Josh Warrington that closely to be studying him enough to know that he's actually a more sophisticated boxer than just a come forward basic British type fighter, So, yeah, anyway, good win for Josh Warrington, the new IBF featherweight champion. Some people are doubting whether he's going to fight Frampton next. They're saying, he's probably going to have a couple voluntary defenses and milk the title for a little bit before taking on somebody as dangerous as Frampton, particularly in Frampton's backyard. But both Warrington and Frampton are with Frank Warren. Frank Warren's going to want to see that fight sooner rather than later, I would imagine. So perhaps they'll strike while the iron is hot and it will be Warrington Frampton next. And who would you guys pick in that fight? I'm going to pick Carl Frampton, but I picked Lee Selby, so maybe I'm just going to underestimate Josh Warrington again. But certainly if it takes place at Windsor Park, I'm picking Frampton to win. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. It's Hatman, I'm out.